Calaroga Shark Media.
CBS profile Taylor Tomlinson. Now, I live in a world where many things can be concurrently true at once. On the one hand, Taylor Tomlinson is wonderfully funny, super talented, going to be a great host of After Midnight, and a comedian you should pay attention to. Also, what could be concurrently true is After Midnight airs on CBS, which kind of motivates CBS to profile Taylor Tomlinson. If you're familiar with Tomlinson's stories so far, she retold it for the CBS crowd and said, I grew up super sheltered and very Christian. I didn't even really know what stand-up was until like middle school. All my jokes have really been rooted in my real life. When I first started, obviously I was very clean. I was 16 years old, very sheltered. I mean, I hadn't dated, I hadn't had sex, I hadn't done much of anything. And so I think the jokes I were doing were probably A, pretty observational, and B, very self-deprecating. Probably to like a point where it might have been a little sad, actually. Taylor lost her mother to cancer at the age of 8 and says, I started writing jokes about losing my mom when I was much younger, but they were very like hit or miss as far as how often they would work because I was doing them, on Sunset Friday night, and everybody was like, we're kind of here trying to get laid. As for the new gig, she says, the thing I'm most nervous about is the social aspect of it and how many people I'm going to be interacting with, because that's a skill. It doesn't come to me naturally. But again, I feel like I'm in a place now where it's something that I'm better at and want to continue to keep getting better at. And it's the thing I'm most nervous about, weirdly enough. After Midnight premieres Tuesday. She also has a new special coming out on Netflix, Taylor Tomlinson's Have It All. That'll be out February 13th. Esquire profiled Garu Gulman. Gary had the best special of 2023, in my opinion. They remind us that about 5 years ago, Gary turned himself into something of a Twitter comedy guru. On the morning of December 31st, 2018, he was having coffee with his wife, and he posed the question, what do you think people would do if I offered a comedy tip every day next year? She liked the idea, so he tweeted out he was going to do it, and then for 366 consecutive days, Gary came up with fresh pieces of advice, and every once in a while, strong opinions about what not to do as a comedian. The first tip, January 1st, 2019, was record every set. The hard part, listen to it and transcribe everything you want to say again. It's sometimes depressing, but it gets you to do the hardest part, which is to sit down and write. Usually you'll think of something to add or change. This works for me. That is great advice, Garu Gulman. Tip number 6 is that words with the sound buh, puh, and cuh, especially at the beginning, end, are funnier. No one knows why. Buick is funnier than Nissan. I learned this early. I assumed everyone knew. They don't. Kathleen Madigan spoke to Tulsa World and said, my dad didn't know I was left-handed until I was 52. That gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. We were fishing and he's like, why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep switching hands like that? And I go, because it's a right-handed reel. And he goes, you're left-handed? And I'm like, yeah, since the day we met. He says, well, you golf right-handed. And I said, because I didn't want to learn how to golf. And you said, use the clubs in the garage. So I used my brother's clubs. Kathleen says that her parents didn't take the comedy thing seriously. I was only 23 when I left for the road, maybe 22. I don't really remember. I was like, I'll give it 5 years. If it doesn't work, I'm sure at 27 I can regroup. It's not like I'm 47. I'm going to quit a good job. I probably made 38 grand a year at that magazine, and I still bartended for real money. I made way more money bartending. As for making comedy a career, Kathleen says, I guess I probably thought when I was making more than my rent comfortably, I thought, okay, this is good. And I could do the clubs till, whenever I'm 60. And then I could go work at a bar till 65 and get on Social Security and stuff. I mean, I really looked at it like a job. A friend always looks at it like it's art. I'm just too Midwest and too practical for that. I'm like, nope, it's still a job, and you still have to have enough money to make a living. When you're making $250 a week as an opening act, that's not a living. That's a hobby that brings you beer money. So I think once I got to the point where I had the whole year booked out in front of me and I knew the money was decent enough for me, I thought, okay, this is cool. Tulsa World asked Kathleen, is there an art to picking an opening act? She said, I don't think there's an art to it, but there's a sensibility about it. You have to be practical. There's one guy I really like, but he's not right for my audiences. And the better he gets, the more he's not right for them. He can get political and challenging and all that. I pick the good time Charlies, the ones that are just silly and funny, and I really work hard at picking good openers. I've had that discussion with other comedians where they're like, I don't care who opens. And I'm like, I care because A, these people paid and they shouldn't be forced to sit here and listen to somebody that's inappropriate or not funny, and B, it sets the tone. Pete Holmes got very introspective when speaking to Collider. Pete said, becoming a parent is a death, and I mean that in a good way. It's a change, especially for a woman who really goes through that physical transformation. The part of you that's not a parent goes away, and then the part of you that's a parent arrives just as suddenly as the other one left, and it's a transformation. The way that I've sort of thought about it is way more interesting. It's deeply healthy, especially for a comedian whose job is to sort of display his wares of personality and his thoughts and his feelings and stuff. Left unchecked, you could become like a golem. I thought I was the star of the movie, like most of us do in our youth. It's a movie about you. It fades in every morning when you wake up. It fades to the credits every night when you go to bed. When you have a baby, you're like, oh no, I'm a supporting character. The movie didn't even start until Lila was born. There's a line in the movie Interstellar that says, as a parent, it's your job to become the memories of your child. That is a great line. Pete continued, I don't mean to disparage anyone else's comedy, but the comedians that have kids or that have something outside of themselves, even if it's not a child that's very important and consuming for them, I prefer that to jokes about weed and Xbox. That's just going to be a preference I have in my 40s. Sam Moril spoke to the Pitt News. They asked him if he had any memories of Pittsburgh, and Sam said, one that definitely sticks out to me is I had a morning show appearance where I've never ticked off a morning show that much in my life. I was on 2 hours of sleep and I was in kind of mood. They asked me, so have you always been funny? And I said with a straight face, no, as a young kid, my uncle was funny and he molested me. Then I was funny. It was like Spider-Man. I delivered that line very straight-faced. They didn't know what to do with it. They kind of froze because it was live TV, and I think he said something like, okay, I don't know what to do with that. Tips for up-and-coming comedians from Sam Moril. Try to live and try to have experiences. Write constantly. You need to constantly write, constantly try to get on stage if you want stand-up. When I started, there wasn't TikTok. At the risk of sounding old as hell, I was sending comedy clubs VHSs and DVDs to get booked, which took a long time. Holy crap, I'm not that old, but I guess I am. What I'd say is maybe you're good on one of those or on TikTok or Instagram and you're good at sketches or jokes. The world is there for you to make jokes at. If you want to pursue this, I once heard Bill Burr say, be careful posting your first few sets on social media because do any of us want to see De Niro's first audition? It kind of kills the mystique of De Niro. The New York Times spoke to Suzy Eddie Izzard about her getting into politics. The conversation went here with Izzard saying, comedy is not a good political weapon. There are people doing anti-trans comedy, maybe because they would have laid into other areas, and now they're feeling it's a fair game to attack trans people. I don't know why. So they asked Eddie about Dave Chappelle. The answer, I don't want to get into a scrap. I think Dave is very talented, and I've met him, and when we met, it was great. The Times asked, Chappelle aside, I'm curious how you understand that material. There are a lot of people doing anti-gay men and anti-lesbian women material at the moment. And he said, not so much, I don't think. 20 years ago, yeah, before gay marriage, there was a lot of, oh my God, we've come to a tipping point. When I came out in 85, how many discussions, how many jokes were there about being trans? None. Now the discussions are happening. It's interesting why some people just say trans, not just LGBTQ+. It's quite a wide arena, and they're just concentrating on one part of it. It's sad that people feel they want to attack it. Why not attack power groups rather than vulnerable people? Some people like to do that. You despair about the little parts of humanity, but most of humanity is good. I knew I was transgender when I was 5, and I didn't tell anyone for a long time. Think of the negative mental health. I came out at 23. Think of the positive mental health since then. It's a good thing. Be honest. Be open. Let's talk about it. I did notice that the Times referred to the comedian as Eddie in this one. I believe that she's going by Suzy these days. And I know I went back and forth there. Her website is eddieizzard.com. So with that said, the last time that website was updated was December of 2020. So I don't know. Mindy Rickles talked about her dad, Don Rickles' legacy with the National Comedy Center. Mindy says, Don was a very loving dad. He never insulted us, and he started something with this insult humor, but it was always done in a way that was kind in his act. He always sang a song, I'm a nice guy, to show the audience that even though he was insulting them, it was done with warmth and a little bit of kidding in it. He always made a joke, keep my name alive, Mindy. So this definitely does that, meaning the Don Rickles exhibit at the Comedy Center. Just to know his memory is alive for my kids and their kids to come and the fans. I mean, I'm so happy for the fans. They'll be able to go and see something like that. Mindy says there's a YouTube channel called @DonRickles featuring some of her dad's shows. I didn't know that. That's cool. And if you can't be bothered to go to a comedy club, what if the comedian comes to you? Howie Wayfish is the founder of House Calls of Comedy. Customers can hire comedians. They'll come directly to your home. No occasion is off limits. Comedians will venture out to perform at country clubs, wineries, dispensaries, charity events, holiday parties, birthdays, and small gatherings. Howie says if a client asked, they'll even do comedy at the foot of someone's bed. This will run you between $750 to $1,000. But Howie says, I'm always negotiable. We'll perform wherever the setting is. You can eat your breakfast and we'll give you some laughs. And that is your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, tell a friend about it. They might like it too. If you want to support the show, go to buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. Or if you're into podcasting 2.0, use the Fountain app and you can throw some sats my way. See you here tomorrow.